The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment Group. Another week, another episode. I've got a new guest joining me who is currently in New York, New Jersey, actually, in Hoboken. But I'll let him take away an introduction of himself, who he is, where they are, what they're doing, and can learn a little bit more about them.
Yeah, perfect. Cheers, El. My name's Danny Cranston, Cityscape Recruitment. Cityscape as a business is a construction and engineering recruitment firm. Started up 16 years ago in Hertfordshire, and then 3-4 years ago we made the journey across the pond to Hoboken, New Jersey, and now have an office in Manhattan as well. So two offices this side of the
Fantastic.
pond.
Cool. Well, where did this all come from? Mate. Well, what was the kind of the intention? Did you start doing the US market from the UK? Did you just decide to I just want to go over there? Like, where did it all? Where was the beginning of all of this?
Yeah. So in terms of I'll start with the background of the business a little bit. So we were set up by Nathan Hall, who actually worked in the construction industry. So as a bachelor's in construction management, and then was a planner scheduler for Lang, who then became Lang O'Rourke for 5 years. So he's always been amongst the construction industry. And when you work in the construction industry, it's obviously quite a hands-on, sort of in-person sort of market. You don't build hotels from your bedroom. So it's always been that kind of sector, and we did really well and do really well in the UK. And as you know, the UK market's become very, very competitive, very, very difficult. And we wanted a couple other avenues as a business. And obviously, the US is such a big country, less competition. So we thought let's give it a go, and yeah, we started working the US market out of the Hertfordshire office.
Yeah.
No knowledge of it. We had a basic Excel spreadsheet of
Yeah.
a few companies and a few phone numbers, and thought let's give it a go. So we're doing it remote for a year whilst my visa was being processed, but the goal was always to move out here. I was trained to meet all my clients, meet all my candidates, go to construction site visits, and obviously you can't do that. You can't do that remote. It's impossible. And again, in construction, everything is so active and face to face. All your clients are meeting their clients face to face. Everything's done in person. So we wanted to replicate how our clients operate to how we operate. So
Fantastic.
Moved out here.
So did you not do any visits at all? Sorry, Dan, were you not going over there during that year and
I
getting
did.
an idea?
Yeah, I did 5 or 6 actually, which was it was quite daunting at first, because you're obviously going to a new country, and it was based just outside of New York City, so it wasn't even in the city. So it was daunting, but it was such good exposure. It was so fun as well. And I think in recruitment, I think a lot of people forget how fun the job can be if it's done properly. And when you're a young guy, 26, and you get the opportunity to go out to New York City, and it literally is
It's dangerous, right? It can be.
and expensive.
Yeah.
But it's what everybody should try and do. Not necessarily go to New York City, but try and make the job as fun as possible, which is what we've done, and we're still doing. It's been a good
Brilliant.
3.5 years at it so far.
So when you were doing the visits, you said 5, 6 times in the first year, meeting clients, getting your name out there and trying to understand the market a lot more. Do you think that it would have, because there's a lot of companies that do operate the US market still from the UK, they actually haven't got a
Mm.
physical presence. Some of them probably haven't even been over to the US since they've been doing it. Do you see that has made a big difference and kind of gave you an immediate impact having made those visits and built those relationships at face value?
100%. I'll tell you what, even now, right, when I meet clients, I'm like, have you ever met a recruiter, a headhunter before? And the answer's 9 times out of 10, no, I never have done.
Yeah,
So that in itself makes such a huge difference in terms of how they see you as an agency. We're not just there to pick up the phone, get a resume out, and hope for a lucky placement. We actually care about who they are as people, and we enjoy working with them. We want them to enjoy working with us. And going back to what I was saying about the
yeah,
sort of long distance and interaction, you can't do that on the phone. There's only so much you can talk to somebody.
yeah.
It's like a glass ceiling of your relationship with that client or candidate, in my opinion.
Did you stick with that New Jersey, New York area as your go-to and you didn't start venturing elsewhere in the US as much as it was appealing probably to do so?
No, so we do work in North Carolina and South Carolina.
Yeah,
And again, it's my colleague Holly who does that market, and me and her about 3 4 weeks ago we went down to North Carolina and South Carolina to meet all these clients, see their offices, see how they conduct themselves. It's a huge culture shift down there as well to New York City. Never mind
yeah,
London. And you wouldn't know that until you meet them. And again, those firms had never met a recruitment agency. But putting that to one side, the client, the candidate aspect, even being able to have a conversation with someone about, I don't know, a restaurant based in New York City or a restaurant based in North Carolina, South Carolina, it takes it away from I suppose, the transactional recruitment to, oh, this person actually knows where we are. They know what we would be doing,
yeah.
that type of work. So it just makes it more personable, you know.
Absolutely. And it brings in that long-term relationship because what have you experienced about, I know you said from a business development standpoint, they haven't met recruiters, but have you felt that it's given you exclusivity, more partnered based business that's given you a long-term relationship?
100%. Like, some of my clients, I can get candidates interviews just via a text message. In terms of, I've got this individual who has been at this company, can do this, this, and this. When do you want to meet them? And you're booking that interview via text, and then a couple of days later, you'll have a proper chinwag about the candidate. And again, we've sort of having the chance to meet these candidates face to face. You're not just
Mm.
talking about what they can bring to the business from a work point of view. You talk about what they did growing up. You talk about what they do outside of work. Are they married? Are they got children? You can talk all about that kind of stuff. So when the candidate is meeting the client, they've got a full picture of their personality rather than,
Yeah,
what project sizes can they manage. And
amazing.
yeah, it helps with, I suppose, closing rate and things like that as well.
How far, if you don't mind me asking, is mate, how far ahead are you right now in terms of the business's expectations of, having set up in the US? Where does that kind of sit within the group at the moment? Are you kind of like above, I suppose beyond that, or you where you want to be?
I think certain aspects are above, certain aspects potentially below, maybe.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know this firsthand. Hiring people, recruiters out here is harder than the UK because
Yes.
you don't have 70 agencies on your doorstep. So maybe the head count isn't where we'd potentially like to be, but in terms of the profit margins of the company, the growth of the company, the upgrade of our current office, then adding another office. There's those aspects, and then being able to go down to the Carolinas, meet our clients and meet our candidates. Those things are probably above where expectations were going to be.
What would you say it was like for you personally moving over to the US? Being able to settle yourself down, go to work. How long did it take you to settle into to normal, everyday life of work and personal?
Yeah, good question. I think it's funny because I think most people would think because Americans speak the same language as us, it's so much easier. They're basically the same as British people. But yeah, I'd say the first month was a bit of an eye opener. Even like even the supermarkets being set up differently to Tesco. Do you know what I mean? Like in Tesco, you know where
Yeah,
your meat and veg is going to be, but when you go to a supermarket out here, you're finding your feet. So um, it was definitely different. I think I'm very lucky in where we're based and where I live, because it's so different to a little village in Hertfordshire. When you walk down
yeah.
the high street in Hertfordshire on a Friday night, pubs are closing at 9 o'clock at night, whereas out here, pubs are opening at 9 o'clock at night. So I was quite lucky in that sense, but it's definitely a bit of a reality check, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. Like you're in Hoboken, which is what, 15, 20 minute, ride, train ride into the city, Manhattan. So you're
Yeah,
not right necessarily in the thick of it, which is a luxury in a sense because it's a bit more I wouldn't say rural living where you are, but a lot more realistic, like living kind of conditions. It's a bit more family orientated to an extent. Still, we've got that younger vibe, isn't it, in Hoboken? But you're not
yeah.
stuck in the with concrete all around you like you would be in Midtown.
Well, it's changed a lot, to be honest. And it's funny, if you speak to people in New Jersey, they would class Hoboken and Jersey City as New York City. And then if you speak to
Really?
people in New York, they're like, no, you're New Jersey. So I always say to people, we're like the ugly ducklings here in Jersey City. It's like something nobody wants. But
Yeah,
if you went further into New Jersey, it's it's such a different world to Hoboken, Jersey City. We still have
yeah,
skyscrapers here, brownstone houses, and from my apartment to our Manhattan office, as soon as I leave my front door, it takes 20 minutes to get to our office front door in Manhattan. So
yeah,
it is so close. But you just get to look at Manhattan,
yeah.
which is it's gorgeous, to be honest.
No, it is absolutely, mate. What's the plans for the business now that you're stateside? You built a nice presence for yourself. You've got a couple of offices, a good team. Where do you see the next kind of year or so going in the business? Are you looking at, expanding market locations? Because you've obviously been pretty specific with what you wanted to focus on, which is obviously what I would say to a lot of companies is rule number one, like choose your area and stick with it. Don't get sidetracked to everything around the US. Where do you see yourself going at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think when people talk about growth, company growth, they always look at um, how many more numbers they need to add to their team, how many offices they need to add. But I think growth is a mixture of that and getting the best out of your current team,
Yeah,
and putting a lot of time and effort into them, getting them sort of developed, coaching them, training them. So in terms of the plans for next year, the team so far are doing really, really well. But it's about elevating their performance even more, which, as you know, takes time. You can't just expect instant results and superstars straight away. It takes
yeah,
investment. So the growth next year to get the most out of what we've got at the moment. Put a lot of time and effort into training and coaching and developing.
yeah,
And then it would be to add a couple more bodies into our Manhattan office. If we can get another sort of two or three there. Like I said to you before, Al, for me, I really like each recruiter having their own proper sector themselves rather than having six people doing the same thing. There's
yeah,
so much competition externally in the market. You don't want to add loads of competition internally as well. I think
yeah,
you can really if you've got 7 or 8 recruiters doing the same market, I think you're really limiting how good some of your people could be,
Yeah,
which will lead to them probably going to another company, which I don't want. So um, I think we've spoken before. Texas and Florida are quite interesting to us in terms of another office and
yeah.
getting people there. So yeah, adding another office, whether that's next year, year after, would be good. But yeah, a couple more people in Manhattan and keep developing and
Yeah.
post what we've got already.
I think that's the good thing about you guys, and always has been. And compared to a lot of other businesses, you kind of run a very lean structure. You've got a very stable structure. You're not trying to run before you can walk. And obviously, a lot of firms, like you said, they go after the big head count for the big numbers, and they end up churning and burning and going around in circles, and creating that obviously internal competition aspect to it as well because they're growing too big.
It
But
could be an
you
ego thing
guys. Yeah,
sometimes,
well, it's recruitment, right? You're going to definitely have that in it. If you haven't, I think, it's maybe not the right industry sometimes, but the ego needs to be used in certain ways.
Yeah.
Um, but as I said, like where and you touched on it before, and I did want to ask you another question on the hiring aspect, but staying true to the value of who you are and the direction that you're going in, and not and doing it when the right people come along is obviously the right way to do it. When you said about, it's been challenging on the hiring. I know that the location of Hoboken and you got Manhattan, but what have you found the troubles with? And I'm sure a lot of listeners would like to hear this out. What have been the biggest struggles and challenges on hiring, the right talent in America? Because, you are in New York, you've got a lot of competition there that you can go and take people from. But what is it that's stopped you from taking on, more at this point?
Yeah, I think as you know, you've got the 180 360 model,
Yeah,
which is an issue. I think for me, I'm such an advocate of 360 recruitment, because if you've got a resource of sending you loads of candidates, how on earth can you sell them in properly to clients when you probably don't know anything about those candidates themselves? How
yeah,
can you sell roles? How can your resources sell roles to candidates when they've never spoken to or met your client face to face, or if they have done, it's very limited
yeah,
access. And I think you sell people, don't you? And your resources relationship wouldn't be as strong with the client as yours, so they wouldn't have as much enthusiasm and be able to talk about their personality and things like that. So the 360 to 180 model is an issue. I think also, I think sometimes, especially in New York City, some of the recruitment firms are your proper big guns, and it's quite easy for people to work off other people's clients, and get a lot of splits or being given accounts to them, which we can't do. We need people who can take accountability for their work, create their own work, make themselves busy,
mm,
rather than having their handheld throughout. So those are two, I suppose, challenging
yeah,
things to the market. And I think also, um, with regards to salaries, you do get people asking for a lot of money because their mate might be on a lot of money, but they
yeah.
don't realize they're not the same person.
No,
You can't be billing, 250 grand and asking for 85. Where does a company make money out of that? And that's why we've been, trading for as long as we have done. That's why we've been making profit, like we have done, and that's why we don't lose many people, because we're not forking out 120 grand a year for someone billing 280,000 to get another body in.
yeah.
There needs to be profit to that as well. So the salary bracket is sometimes challenging,
Well,
but
New
I
York, especially when it comes to money, like there's a lot of expectation. Not necessarily, they don't look at it as how much have I build against how much am I worth. They're looking at it as how much can I make on a salary because it's bloody expensive here.
yeah,
And I've seen advertisements of jobs going up to 100 grand, and I'm only on 70 grand, so I deserve to get that. And it's like, they don't. It's not measured properly, and it never really has been, and we're still facing that challenge always today.
No, and I do get it right because when a candidate is on the market, they don't necessarily their mindset isn't right. So the company I'm joining, I want them to be able to make 45% profit next year. If any candidate did think that, I'd be thinking, what? Why are you concerned about
Hmm.
stuff out of your control? A candidate's mindset is what's in it for me.
Yeah,
So I do understand it 100%, but there needs to. You will also miss out on very good opportunities if
absolutely.
you're not if you're not, I suppose, intelligent with things like that.
No, fine. Last question for you, mate. If you went back in time and was looking at the US again, would you have set up in the New York area, or would you have opened up an office in another state, i.e., maybe the Carolinas or Florida, Texas, as mentioned before? Or do you think, being in New York and the area that you're in was the right decision?
Yeah, I do New York City over and over again. I enjoy the clients I work with. I love there's something really nice about when you've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 meetings one day and you're running from one part of the city to the other, getting on the subway as they call it from one place to another.
Yeah.
And it's great fun. And going back to what I said earlier, this journey obviously it's about making money, but there's no point in making money if you can't enjoy the journey along the way.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. No, I agree with you, and it's really nice to hear. There's always the question mark of where should we be, how should we set up, where should we set up, and New York. I always suggest New York is a great location, but people then, as you know, they set up in maybe in Atlanta or the Carolinas and whatnot, and it's a very different vibe, very different feel. But I think, if you want to be in the thick of it all, like New York is still my number one kind of preference of choice to where to be.
Yeah, I don't think there's no right or wrong. If you want to go to Indiana and make loads of money there and you love the place, then you crack on and move to Indiana.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be my first choice, but yeah, there's no right or wrong with it as long as it works for you and your company.
Absolutely, mate. Well, look, I really appreciate, catching up, mate. Really, good to hear that you guys are doing so well. You and I will obviously keep in touch at the same time, and hopefully moving into the new year, we'd like to see a bit more growth on your side that you're aiming for. And if anyone's got any questions, anyone wants to reach out, if you're in the construction space, UK or US or anywhere, reach out to the guys over at Cityscape. Talk to Dan. If you guys are thinking about moving over as a business, definitely worth taking a note of what these guys have experienced and what they've done. And I'm sure Dan will help you out if you have any questions. But really appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Dan, for jumping on the episode, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, cheers, El. I appreciate that. Thanks.